The inspiration for Light and Shade, there is no such thing. I start with an empty canvas or silence. First thing I do is when I'm starting a project, is look around for any useful tools, new instruments, new sounds. It just so happened with this album that there's a whole new generation of software synthesizers. Instead of a real synthesizer, you have a picture of a synthesizer. And when I started off the album, the room where we're sitting now was crammed full of machinery. There was a massive Neve mixing console. There was racks full of electronics. There was miles of wiring going from here to the next room to upstairs. There was it was really the studio that I've been working on my last about 7 albums was still here. And we obviously used to use computers as a kind of add-on to the studio. I followed the development from the very, very early Macintosh, and it just so happens now with the new generation of Macs and PCs and new operating systems. For example, the Macintosh now is multitasking, so it only used to be able to do one thing at a time. And I had a really good look around and realised that all my electronics in my studio I didn't need it. I could do everything. Instead of having a big mixing console, I have a picture of a mixing console. So I spoke to one of the companies, who deal with second-hand audio equipment. Said, "Come, I've got a whole studio here. You come with a truck and you give me more fraction of what I paid for it, because it's obsolete equipment now. You can have the lot." So they came in and took the entire lot away, and then I spent a few weeks installing software in my Mac and also in my PC, and doing experiments to get the two machines, because they're two different kinds of computers, to speak to each other, to synchronize together, to network together, and then installing software instead of a real mixer. I have a picture of a mixer, and working out how to get my guitars into the system. Now everything is software based, and I'm not alone in working like that. Modern musicians mostly work like that. It's a similar setup really to the home studio, which hundreds of thousands of teenagers have in their bedrooms. And in a way it turns a complete circle, because the original Tubular Bells demos, which I made when I was 17 in a little bedsit in Tottenham, which is a tiny little part of North London, was made with one little tape recorder, which I used to modify in order to overdub lots of instruments. I could overdub about 6. It was to do with cutting the wires of the different erase head and swapping them around and blocking off the erase head with a piece of cardboard. And I was able to make the Tubular Bells demos on that, and that was a bit like a home studio. But now the average teenager has a multi-track studio in their bedroom, really, which is fantastic, and all the possibilities that go with that. So I started with a complete blank canvas with Light and Shade, and it was like a question of plugging in this software instrument and seeing what it does, and going through the thousands of presets, and I like that. There's just too many to know them all. There were literally thousands of possibilities. So I chose the first one, and I started building a track on that. I used the computer software for the backing. My voice, if I was a singer, I could sing, but I'm not a singer. My voice is my guitar, which, as you see around you, I have a great collection. They're not there for show. They're my instruments, my tools. I use every one of them. They all have their own character. So I use the software as the backing for it. And I felt that that's what gives it a contemporary sound. It doesn't sound like something from the 1960s or 70s. It sounds from 2005, but it's got my trademark, my voice, my guitar playing on it. Yes, the end result is not doesn't sound technical, doesn't sound scientific. You know, it's as I've got more mature, I concentrate much harder on the mood and the feeling, the atmosphere of a piece of music, rather than how technical it is. Like some of my earlier albums, like Tubular Bells, for example, is very, very technical. You know, you have like several guitars playing very fast in, you know, close harmony, and you have a bass. It's intricate. It's more mathematical. You know, it's now and also to me the old albums somehow they sound wooden. In parts, they sound like I was experimenting. I was trying to make something, you know, very complex and, you know, impressive. And no, I don't bother with. If I can play guitar very, very fast, if I need to, if I think that's appropriate, but I concentrate much more on the soul, the spirit, the mood of the music, rather than the technique. And you were saying that it sounds more about feelings. Well, I think that's what's reflected in the music now. You know, they reflect my emotions, my spirituality, you know, the Light album is designed to be peaceful listening experience, but the Shade album's got some crazy parts to it. You know, screaming and crying and wailing and masses of guitars. You know. Oh yes, I love every track. In fact, it's designed to be listened to in continuity. You don't like pick out one track and listen to that. You know, I never tried to make one track as a single or think, oh, that's going to be the single of the album. It's designed to, you listen to the Light album, you can sit and listen to it and concentrate, and you can hear all the intricacies of it, or you can have it on in the background. You know, so it's ambient. You know, it has two functions. The Shade album doesn't work so well as background music, you know, unless you're doing something very bizarre. The track Surfing, how did that come about now? Oh, that was one of my early experiments with the software vocalist. I'd heard that there were software programs that could imitate the human voice, and thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So I got two of them. One's called Vocaloid, the other one's called Cantor. Cantor is very robotic. I love robot voices. I don't know, it's the child in me, but it's, you know, I love them. So I could quite happily have. I did a version of the Hallelujah chorus using robot voices, and nobody seemed to like it except for me. I don't know why. So it's one of the tracks that nobody's heard yet. So. That Vocaloid was more. It sounds more human. You do need to work on it. You almost have to do it syllable by syllable, word by word, and actually edit and craft and, you know, every little tiny bit of it. But I like that. It feels like a carpenter, you know, making a piece of furniture. It's craftsmanship. You know, I like that. Except it's done with sound. So I've discovered that it was capable of being the lead sound of a voice, and then I thought, well, perhaps if I use Vocaloid, and you can do harmonies in Vocaloid, and add my own voice. And so I added lots of me, about 16 tracks of me in 3 different harmonies, sort of surrounding the Vocaloid. I like that sound. And I thought, well, I'll build it into a song. And I needed lyrics for it, so I thought, well, okay, well, I'm not the world's best lyricist. I'm not a poet. You know, sometimes I need to write lyrics just so that the voice has got something to sing. So I thought, well, what shall I make it about? And I'll make it about the internet, surfing the internet. And like that idea. So I scribbled down some words and tried them out with Vocaloid, and then after about 1.5 to 2 minutes, I found that it was getting a bit monotonous just listening to the robot voices. So I thought, well, I'll put a guitar section in here. And I love the sound of massed guitars, lots of them. You know, I made this section which is really lovely, kind of loose, almost drunken guitars. They were like that. You know. They played them very loosely rather than tight and precise. So they were really kind of almost drunken. You know. So. But then on the top of that is one that's really flying. It's almost surfing on top of the drunken ones. There's a perfect one on the top. This is the way I work. This is the way I think and you know, produce, craft the music, almost like sculpting sound, you know, as if it was a sculpture. And really, that's how that track came about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's one other little voice which is from another program which has it's actually not supposed to be a singing program. It's one of these speech synthesizers from a PC. There's a setting on one of them which is Choir Boy, and I was able to make a sound that sounded like the Tulsa Knabenchor, you know, in Germany. This male soprano choir boy, and I found I could write in the lyrics, and I could change the key of it and edit it syllable by syllable. It sounded like this, you know, choir boy singing. So I'd mix that on top of Vocaloid and me as well, and all the guitars. It took about, you know, 4 or 5 weeks to do all this work, but it's what I do. I love to do it. Sculpting sound. I've had a very strong link to Germany going right back to the 1970s. Funny enough, Germany was the last country that liked Tubular Bells. Tubular Bells wasn't a big seller in Germany in the early times, and you know, compared to other countries. And really, when I got to actually meet the people working in the record company at the time, and we also did some tours. Gradually, we built it up, and it became, you know, really my best country. And it was massive sales in the 1980s, and we would play to, you know, packed concert halls all across Germany. And there's always been this link, you know. Yeah, with Christopher von Dalen, I was speaking to a record company called Edel in Germany, and 2 of the managers came over to talk to me, you know, about the possibility of working with him. Didn't end up working with him in the end, but they said, "Have you heard of this artist called Schiller?" I said, "No." And he sent me a CD, and I had to listen to it. I actually watched the DVD as well in concert. Oh, I like this music. And can you put me in touch with you know, the man who makes it, Christopher von Dalen? And I emailed him. He came over to see me, and we got on well. And said, "Well, let's try and make a track together." You know, we didn't work in the studio together. We just he would send me sound files which had the drums, the keyboards, the bass line, and then I would over the internet put them into my software, and then I would add guitar on top of it, and I'd send him back the guitar. And it worked very well. And I played guitar on his album, and he played the drums and the percussion on my album. So we never actually worked together. It was just all done on the internet. And he's a nice man, very nice. Makes me laugh. Well, that's why with Christopher von Dalen we didn't actually sit and work together, because I tried to explain to him that I couldn't do that, because sometimes I'm sitting in my studio and I'll just sit there for 3 hours, and it's not much fun for somebody else, you know. So when's he going to do something, you know? So, and then suddenly I burst into action, and I know! And I'm rushing around and playing guitars and playing the piano, and then I'm exhausted and like that. So I just don't work well with people. But I can certainly work on a piece of music. There are collaboration software now, especially for PC, with programs like FL Studio, where, you know, lots of people can work together on a piece of music, easily swap files, and you can gradually build it up. I prefer, you know, to be on my own when I'm working. Downloading, oh, I have to tell you, the Napster was actually, I brought it to the attention of the music business. I didn't discover it personally. I've been working on my 3D interactive project called Music VR, and I was working with a code writer who writes right deep down in the machine in C++. We were working on that. He wrote all that, and he's got his ear to the ground on the internet, you know. And he said, "Yeah, you know, you can download all of your albums for free." I went, "Really?" I said, "Yes, it's called Napster." I went, "Napster?" I don't know. So, yeah, all of them. So I got on the phone to my lawyer at the time, and I said, he didn't believe me. And next week it's the front page of Music Week. You know. That was the beginning of downloading. Obviously, that it would mean the end of, you know, rock stars. You know, you couldn't make money out of music because everybody would instantly have it, you know, for nothing. So it had to be regulated. It's only in the last year or so that it started to be regulated, and I think in the future that will be the way that people will get their music. So it is a bit like piracy, it's a bit like stealing, but you know, we now have to put samples, MP3 files of an album on your website so that people can get a taste. You know, if artists spend, you know, huge amounts of money and time making albums, and you know, they have to be able to live, earn money like everybody else. So you can't allow everything to be free at the moment. Yes, well, I think the Grammy for Tubular Bells was a very special thing. I was in such a strange mood at the time. I was still only 24 or something, 23, and I didn't know what a Grammy was. Somebody turned up at my house. I was living in the country, and said, "You won this." And I went, "Thank you." Just stuck it. And suddenly later I realised it's like an Academy Award, and got nominated again in 1999 for a Voyager album, which is a Best New Age album, which is what they call my music over there. And actually went to the Radio City Music Hall. I didn't win it, but you know, I saw what the Grammys were, and I have to say the actual main show live was just fantastic. You know, real fantastic musicians like Bob Dylan and you know, Fleetwood Mac, all playing live really well. It was just brilliantly organised. So I think that's my precious. It's like precious one. It's nice to know I've won one once in my life. Of all the concerts that I've done, it's really the three that stick out, and luckily they're the ones that are available on DVD. They're Edinburgh Castle, and there's Horse Guards Parade right by the Houses of Parliament, and there's the concert in Berlin on the Millennium. That was the last time I played live, you know, is in Berlin on the Millennium evening, and I at the time I thought, well, that's my last concert. I can't get any better than this. And I had the most incredible light show, which was designed by Gert Hoff, and it was, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people there, and it was an occasion marking the end of a period and the beginning of a new period, and I thought, well, that's enough, you know, I've done enough. There's a little thing inside me going, maybe you could do another one, maybe you could do another one. So I'm speaking to a few people about the possibility of doing some more live shows. Well, I've just discovered motorcycling. I always wanted to ride big, powerful bikes, but I never got around to passing my test. I finally passed my test 2 years ago. Since then, I'm a complete addict. You know, I can even spend, you know, hours in there polishing them, tweaking them, you know, changing the settings on the suspension, and you know, riding them. I'm a complete motorcycle maniac now.
How many do you have?
4, but they change every month. So you know, luckily they're not too expensive. They're not like buying Ferraris or Aston Martins, you know. So you can part exchange one for, you know, not too much money and keep trying different ones out. So I'm trying to perfect my garage now. I have some very modern bikes, and I've got a kind of classic, oldish Ducati, and they're my main things. And otherwise, you know, I love nature. I love to be out in nature. I love animals. We've got lots of animals, and thing I'm looking forward to. I've tried all kinds of aeroplanes flying. I have a license which I got many years ago, but I never enjoyed it. I found it stressful, and I felt I was in a machine. So I'm planning to have a go at hang gliding. I don't know what you call that in Germany. When you strap on this wing and you jump off the mountain. And I'll give that a go. Yeah, the strangest thing that ever happened was, well, when I started out, because I had my demos of tubular valves, and I went round, did the rounds of all the record companies, the big ones in London. Went to every single one, and the A&R person there just thought I was crazy. No, because I was trying to present something that didn't have vocals, didn't have lyrics, didn't even have drums. You know, it was just kind of electronic. You know, they thought I was completely crazy. You know, I remember, you know, watching my tape, because it was reel-to-reel tape, going around and around on their tape machine, and you know, after 5 minutes, I'd watch the finger press the stop button, watch it rewinding, watch it go back in its box, and get it handed back to me. So sorry, not marketable. And I got really depressed, and I was planning to. I'd heard that you could be a state-employed musician in the Soviet Union, because I wanted to be a musician. Well, I thought, well, maybe they'll be more helpful. And I was looking in the phone book in the Soviet embassy. I was just about to dial the number on the telephone, hand reaching for the telephone, and I went, bring, bring. Pick up the telephone. It's Richard Branson here. We'd like you to come and make an album for us. So that was the strangest moment. If we look at Shade, there is a movement which began in the 60s, which is a spiritual movement. It's now been termed New Age. In the 90s, it was given a kind of hippie rubbish New Age there, you know. But now it's become absorbed into our culture. Most national newspapers have pages in the middle which, you know, are promoting alternative therapies, meditation, counselling, these things. When I used to speak about psychotherapy, because I had very many psychological problems when I was younger, it was like saying, something really wrong with me. Psychotherapy was thought of as being, you know, you're crazy, I don't know. But now it's accepted, you know, if you've got psychological problems, you speak to a therapist. So there's a New Age movement. There's disciplines like meditation. I learned meditation from, you know, a real teacher. I went on a course to learn how to do it. It's a fantastic thing to learn to do. I learned to do Tai Chi, which is another lovely thing to do. It's ways of existing in this world where you're completely calm, you know, empty. You have peace, tranquility, and contentment. That's possible. Relating to the Light album, it's all these experiences which I've learned and which are becoming part of our culture now, are portrayed in the music from the Light album.